Okay, so here I am with my Chrysler 135. And as you may be able to tell, I'm having a little bit of problems with spark. Ta-da! So this is the Presto Light CDI ignition system. It was retrofitted onto some of the 135 Chryslers when the Magna Power 2 ignition didn't work very well. And I got it like this. I did replace one of these, I'm going to call it an ignition amplifier, but CDI unit, whatever you want to call it, brick. So anyway, long story short, I also replaced a stator in here with the CDI electronic stator. And so I took this out the other day and everything was working great. Towing a tube and fantastic. And then, number 3 here decided to stop firing. And I found that out by just pulling the plugs and seeing what was going on. So it was a strange deal because it would fire. Everything's good for about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes of, fairly wide open throttle operation, and it just died. I turn it off and wait for a while, and lo and behold, it works again. So right now it's dead cold, and I assume it's going to work again. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip onto the stator here. I'm going to clip onto the triggers, which are these guys here, and just check them out. And for doing that, I'm kind of lucky. I have a scope meter. Now, you may or may not have a scope or anything like that, but the first measurements I'm going to do are just your traditional ohm measurements, and I'm going to get my DVA out, which is just a sampling unit. I'm sure you're aware of it if you're doing this work. And just I'll check the waveforms, and then I'll check the DVA as well. So for a test setup, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these little clip guys, and they're crappy, no doubt about it, but they're going to allow me to sense the stator voltage and that kind of stuff with the plugs done up, like an in-circuit type measurement. And the reason I want to do that is just to make sure it doesn't, die off on me. I'll use the same thing on the, that is, they'll die off when I get a load on them. So I kind of want to see what they are open circuit, which I think is how they're normally measured, and then check them with a load on them. Although I don't think the stator is the issue because number 4 is running fine. So probably it's, I don't know. I checked the coil by moving the 2 output leads. These guys are, let's see. So right here, trace them back to my new CDI box, but these are the outputs for the coils right here. I swapped them and number 3 started firing and number 4 didn't. So it's not the coil. I'm down to a CDI box right here, or a trigger. The triggers are in a coil assembly up in there. And it said something about online there was a issue perhaps with this white lead. Where's white lead? Down in here, which is the guy that shorts out to turn off the magnetos. One of these guys right over here. And it said to disconnect it, and I guess I don't know, maybe one coil pack can feed back into the other coil pack. It talks about a blocking diode maybe perhaps being bad in the CDI unit. So I'll check those things too, but just to get going, I'm going to put some wires on. I'll check the stator waveform. I'll check the stator impedance, or resistance, I guess in this case. thing I did was I just marked and got rid of all the connections for the ignition pack. It's sitting over there. Next step is to take off the nut on the flywheel and take the flywheel off. This is sometimes easy, this is sometimes really not easy. I'm just going to use a breaker bar and try and snap it off of there. Snap it off, not very good I guess. Take it off, yeah. And yeah, underneath is the trigger mechanism and also the stator. See, I got my puller on the top. That's how I got it off. I just haven't removed it yet. It's a harmonic balancer puller. And it works great, man. I mean, I think it's the only way to go. So basically I tension this sucker up, and then I use a propane torch to heat down in by the shaft there, and then just use a 2x4 and a hammer. Just give it a little tap, and it seems to pop off really good. So for those of you having trouble with the flywheel, that's what I do. Seems to work for me. Okay, here we go. I got the flywheel off, and I removed the stator. It's a nice new CDI stator sitting over there. And this is the trigger mechanism right here. So just want to make sure we know we can locate things properly. So this solid green and orange goes to the 3-4 trigger, and the next one here, which is red-white, in a second we'll find out where. This red-white, the next one to the starboard side, goes to the 1-2 trigger, which means that this red and white green also goes to the 3-4 trigger, and this other pair, the orange green, must go to the 1-2 trigger. That now we can remove this this bolt right here. Just a little guy, and it controls the timing. So as the throttle advances, so does the trigger. It moves. Pretty straightforward. Used on a lot of outboards. So here's my new fancy schmancy part. CDI Electronics. It's a 136 5029-4, and looks to match up really good. Next step is to put it on. One thing I think it is important when we're doing these triggers is, first things first, is give it a little lubrication in between here so it slides nice. And these wires will wear because it moves, so also put a little lube on them. And the last thing is to make sure you get these wires tie wrapped in someplace so that when the flywheel sits over, it's not going to scrub the wires, because the last thing you want is a brand new trigger and take out the wires in your first trip out. That would absolutely suck. But before I pulled the stator, I just popped it back on. I made a little mark here, just a little alignment mark with a case, so I know exactly where it should go. And then there's just where is it? Like 1, 2, 3, 4 flathead screws on the stator to hold in. That's pretty much it. Pretty simple. For these 4, just because it vibrates so much back here, it's probably wise to put some like blue thread blocker on it, just to keep those screws from backing out. Okay, here's the CDI stator kind of fully installed. Again, the wires here, you don't want them touching off in the flywheel. So I'll tuck them down in there, and I'm going to tie wrap them off here. Unlike the trigger wires that move, the stator wires do not. So this is the power supply for your 2 coil packs. And if we go around the corner here, here's the 2 greens. They're the AC feed, and better tuck them down and in there. It's kind of funny how they sit. They sit inside there nicely, and they go down to the rectifier. So that's the AC feed for your rectifier. And here's the DC output. That's the negative there, and the positive there for your charging. Nothing too surprising. Just make sure those wires don't touch off, like I said. Otherwise, you'll have a very bad day. And we want to have good days. One thing that interested me is when I first put this in, it like moves super freely, which I like. That's what it should be, right? When I put the stator on, it got really sticky. So I think I gotta address these guys here. Just gonna clean it up a little bit. I think maybe the stator is squeezing it when I put it on, and it's causing this to bind a little bit. And you know, I want the throttle operation to be nice and smooth. I don't want that to bind up, so I'm gonna work on that a little bit. Okay, so I think I got that problem licked. I just used my random orbital and took off a bunch of corrosion. Well, it wasn't heavy corrosion, but it was light corrosion. And now the stator just slips on nice. So I also did the inside of the tabs there as well, just to make sure that the trigger mechanism would slide real nice. So I'm just going to clean it up and lube it, and hopefully I get much smoother operation on that sucker now. Well, I gotta say, it's not just better, it's way better. I can just fingertips now. It's super awesome, so that was totally worth doing. Okay, just wanted to show you guys how I routed my wires. So, you know, that's where the flywheel is. Anyways, these guys here, these plugs here, are the triggers with this black lead right here coming up. And I've got them tied, well, like so. So they sneak in. Here's one of the triggers here. The trigger moves forward from this position, forward up to here or so, and then back to there. So that's no throttle, and full throttle's up here. So you can see just a little bit of play in the wires. That's all you need, right? And keep them down and away from that flywheel. These guys here are the stator output wires for the ignition packs, and you can sort of see how they're routed. Like I've got them tie wrapped and brought down. Those are the blue and black wires, and the brown wires continue on around the corner and are tied up in, you know, much the same way. So I think that looks pretty good. It seems to be very smooth in operation, so that's great. And yeah, that's it, man.